Welcome, my friends of the interwebs. Today, for your reviewing pleasure, I have for you a Spencer repeating rifle from the Civil War. How I came about this to own this gun is kind of an interesting story, so I'm going to try to tell it real quickly. When I was 25, a neighbor of mine, a couple houses down, seen me in the backyard. And he yelled at me and he said, "Hey, I've got an old gun that I inherited from my uncle. Would you be interested in taking a look at it and possibly buying it?" And at that time I was kind of broke, and I'm like, well, I'll come and take a look at it. And I went down there, and this is what he had. And I looked at him and I said, I gotta be honest with you. I said, I know it's an antique. I think it's from the Civil War, but I really don't think I could give you what it's worth. And he said, well, how much would you be willing to pay me? I said, well, I can give you $400 for it. And but I told him, I was honest with him. I said, I'm sure it's worth more than that, but I said, right now, things are tight, but $400 I could come up with if you were looking to part with it. And he said, well, yeah, that'd be fine with me. So I went to the bank the next day and got him $400. And immediately I took it to a gun shop. And the guy that owned the gun shop he offered $1,000 to me right there. Now, I have no idea what this is worth. I know they made like 200,000 of these things, so I don't think they're really that rare. But I know at least, quite a few years ago it was worth $1,000 to somebody, so I don't know. If anybody has an idea what it's worth today, I'd love to know. I really haven't thought much about this in a long time. It basically hangs on my wall. I do think it's kind of cool, though. Let me give you a close-up of it. This was a game changer, if I remember right, as far as weapons go. It was one of the very first, what they would call repeating arms. This is a 7-round tube fed, and I believe it was capable of shooting somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 rounds a minute. The tube was fed at the buttstock. See if I can do this one-handed. Basically, you would pull this tube out, and you would load your cartridges in there, and then you would load it by pulling this down and back up, and then of course it wouldn't cock it for you, so then you would have to physically cock it. So for back then in the 1860s, that was a huge improvement over what they had. I want to say the muzzle loaders they were using back then could maybe do 3 or 4 rounds a minute. So to go from 3 or 4 rounds a minute to 20 rounds a minute was huge. Now this is the carbine version. This one was actually issued to the Cavalry. The Cavalry used the carbines, which was just shorter and lighter versions of the rifle. But it's still fairly heavy by today's standards, that's for sure. And the cartridge, I think, was a 56. I may not be completely right about that, but I know it was black powder. So you can imagine the fog of war back then was truly the fog of war. So anyway, I'm going to keep this short. If anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them. I'm not an expert on Civil War weapons at all. But I just thought you might be interested. It's a little piece of my collection, and I'm happy to have it for sure. I'm definitely not looking to sell it, but and it looks really cool on my wall. So anyway, everybody, take care.